my heart stretching out its little wings, and then they started to flap, and then they started to flap. And once again, this increasing momentum of speed, the wings flapped harder and faster and harder and faster. And then it just increased and increased and increased to this point that my heart just exploded. It just exploded in love. And that's all there was. This story, we could call it the Christmas of 2021. It was the first Christmas that I've ever spent alone, and now I've spent two. And if you haven't done that before, I recommend it. A Christmas alone is a growth experience if you're looking for it like that. Where I was in the world, where I was in Australia, I should say, was Denmark, which is a tiny little town in Western Australia, southern Western Australia. It's actually the location of the last episode, if you haven't listened to it, with a woman named Jade. Incredibly inspiring conversation with a very, very fascinating and intelligent woman. I recommend you go check it out if you haven't already. But yeah, I was still in Denmark when this story took place. It was leading up to Christmas. I knew that I wanted to have my Christmas alone. I was hoping that I could find some sort of a beautiful setting in nature, somewhere to camp or a house to look after, something like that. I thought about a few camp spots and I asked a few people, but group consensus was that it's Christmas and a lot of families will be in those campgrounds. I wanted to be alone. And the reason I wanted to be alone is I'd been carrying a large dose of psilocybin mushrooms for 6 months, waiting to have a really big dose. And I felt like Christmas was going to be the perfect time to do that. The reason I say again that I wanted to be alone is I'd done one 6 months prior and I was very, very, very loud. Fortunately, the location that I took that hero's dose was the middle of the Nullarbor in some underground caves. So I could be very loud. And there was nobody around to bother me. That itself was one of the most life-changing experiences I've ever had. I won't go into the full detail, and maybe someday I will, but at this point I just feel that that story is quite a personal one, and I'm choosing to keep it to myself. In a nutshell though, just to give you the blurb, what I gathered from that was a much, much deeper understanding of who I am and how I am the way that I am. I went through my entire life, moment by moment, and I felt it all and I released it all. And I came out of that cave much more understanding of myself. An experience that I was searching for in the cave, I didn't actually manage to get. I actually got what I needed, but I was attached to this idea, and so I wanted to go in again. So I got some more mushrooms from a beautiful friend of mine, and I kept them with me, waiting for the right time as I traveled around in my van. I kept them in a little compartment just underneath my pillow. So I kind of like to think of it poetically that I was sleeping and dreaming above these mushrooms, and these mushrooms spent enough time with me to know exactly where I was at and know exactly what to offer me. Fast forward 6 months, I'm in Denmark, and I knew it was the right time to take them. The camping idea wasn't working out. The house sitting idea wasn't working out. I did get offered a place to stay. Shout out to Manda and Jakey, but it was in a residential area. And as I said, I was super loud the last time in the cave. So I just didn't think that I could do a big dose in a residential area. It would have been a nightmare. What could have possibly happened? Neighbors hearing me screaming, calling the cat team, police, ambulance, whatever. It just would have been horrible. So I just kind of let go of the idea. I accepted that it wasn't coming to me, so I'd put it off for later. Instead, I thought I'd just do a little dose and I'd have a beautiful little Christmas alone in a residential place and do something different. And then a miracle happened. I got a call from my friend Courtney, who lived in a beautiful little cottage inside a forest at the top of a hill overlooking the ocean with a private lake and a giant boulder covered in moss leaning against the house. It's like something from a fairy tale. I'd been there to visit her and we had dinner like 2 weeks before, and she was calling me on Christmas Eve to let me know that she was going to be with her family, and she just had the idea to maybe offer it to me and see if I wanted to house sit. Of course, I said. And so I did. It was everything that I wanted. In fact, it was far greater and far better than I wanted. I couldn't have imagined a better place to do this massive dose of mushrooms and spend Christmas on my own, going deep into my psychosis, going deep into my psyche or psychosis. Let's see. I thanked Courtney. I packed all my stuff. I fed Jake Amanda's cat, and then I head up to the little cottage. I got there, I chopped wood, I put food in the fridge, I set the space, I felt into it, and it felt perfect. So I just prepared myself for the next day. When I woke up Christmas Day, I'd already decided I'd spend the whole day in silence, I'd fast, and I wouldn't use technology. And so I spent my morning stretching, I went for a surf, I spent the whole day quiet, I went for a swim in the lake alone, this little private section of her property. It was a really beautiful and slow Christmas day, lots of contemplation. I saw a snake, a yellow belly black snake, I think it was, huge, almost stepped on it. Journaled a lot. I've just been reading the journaling that I did that day. Yeah, just very much in anticipation for the night that I was about to have. I prepared a little nest right in front of the fire. I prepared some wood. I brought in all of my artifacts and my little things that make me feel safe. I made an altar by the fire. I got all of her cushions and pillows into this little nest. And as the sun set, I geared myself up towards taking these mushrooms. I brewed some cacao. I sat on a meditation cushion that my dad had given me. I got out the didgeridoo. I sat with the medicine, sat with the mushrooms, and I ate them. Cliffhanger. I ate the mushrooms. When I poured them out of the jar, I really was wowed by how juicy and thick they were. It was way more than I was expecting. It was probably about 7 grams because it was 9 grams when I first got it, and I'd come across 2 people on my journey that I felt could use some mushrooms. So I parted ways with a gram here and a gram there. And I'm guessing that I was left with about 7 grams. The last time I did it in the cave, it was 5 grams. And I felt like I was ready for something a bit bigger. When they were in my hand, I just started chewing on them one by one, swallowing them, chewing on them, swallowing them. It was hard to get them down. It was a lot. And it was the first thing that I'd eaten that day. And then I guess we start talking about the real journey, which I'm sure is what you're really interested in. I have a knack for giving a lot of context. So if you're still with me, I appreciate you. Let's get into the exciting part, as much of it as I can remember. After I swallowed the mushrooms, I stared into the fire for a while. I was sitting on my dad's meditation cushion. I tried to drop into my body. I practiced some Vipassana meditation techniques that I'd picked up earlier that year. And eventually I decided to play didgeridoo. I was playing the didgeridoo relentlessly, continuously, on and on and on. And eventually I just kind of tapped into flow. With didgeridoo, you definitely warm up to the didge and the didge warms up to you. So often when I pick up a didge and I haven't played for a day or more, it takes me a while to get into it, get into the rhythm. And that's exactly what happened. But I got deeper into the rhythm than I normally would, and then deeper again, and then deeper again. And then it was almost a thoughtlessness. I was playing the didgeridoo without thinking, how do I do this? Or without trying. It was just going and going and going. The vibrations that I was creating, and before I say so, something that I really appreciated about playing didgeridoo, I see it to be a really powerful meditation tool because it's so many factors, so many things in one. It's an instrument for meditation as it is an instrument for music. When you think about these different modalities of meditation, you've got transcendental, you've got mantra, you've got vibrational, you've got, you can listen to music to guide yourself into meditation. You've got breath work. Didgeridoo is all of those things wrapped into one. I'm doing breath work to play the didgeridoo. I'm listening to the music that it's creating to go deeper into meditation. I'm working with vibration. And then it's also the sounds that you can put through the didgeridoo. They can be the mantra, repeating. Something that I like to do with didge as well is to think or focus on a feeling or a thought and project that through the sound. So it feels like I'm sending that into the room. All right, I'm getting into a flow with this now. Anyway, so I'm playing the didgeridoo. Obviously, there's a bit of time, like 40 minutes or so, before mushrooms really start to feel in your belly. And I guess it had started to reach about that time that the mushrooms are starting to rise up through the belly and reach a place that's more noticeable, at least like coming out of the subtle and into the more obvious. I was playing the didgeridoo, and I guess the first thought that I'd had for quite a while I was in that flow with the didge was, whoa, I'm inside the didgeridoo. Suddenly all the sounds, the frequencies, the vibrations, everything felt like it was not just coming out from in front of me, but it was completely surrounding me. It was almost like I was playing the didgeridoo, but it was also being played onto me. If you've ever had someone play a didgeridoo on you, you'd know what I'm talking about. I was having that experience, but it felt like even deeper. I was inside the didgeridoo, which I know sounds crazy, but that's how it felt. I kept playing and I just let myself resonate in this deep space for quite some time as the mushrooms become more and more intense. Something that happens when you have a really big dose of mushrooms as well, from my experience or from what I've noticed, is when you have a really big dose, you feel it coming just like you do on any other regular dose. You feel it arriving and then you feel it like spiking and spiking. But with a big dose, it spikes and spikes and spikes and spikes and spikes. But it gets faster and faster and faster. So the momentum of the oncoming gets increasingly faster and faster and faster. So first it's like this subtle, like, oh, it's coming, and then it's getting closer, and then it's getting more strong and more powerful, and then it doubles and doubles and doubles. So at this point, when I'm like, oh, I'm inside the didgeridoo, I'm like, all right, I'll keep playing, and it's like kind of lifting. You can sense there's a sense of the power that's brewing inside of the body. Once it starts to hit like that, your brain or your mind or your thinking body just suddenly goes, whoa, all right, this shit's about to fucking pop. And you can feel it when it's coming. It's like when you can hear the rumbling of clouds in the distance, and you can hear the power, you can hear the force that's approaching, and you know there's going to be big thunder coming. It's like that. It's coming, and it's in the distance, and then more and more and more, and then boom, you're in it, and you've shot out like a rocket. And so that's where I was at. I could feel the power approaching. I put down my didgeridoo and I just sat into my meditation, and I just tried to be present. I tried to stay grounded. It's scary when you feel the power approaching, but what keeps me feeling safe and grounded is remembering and believing in the trust that I have in psilocybin, the trust that I have in the plant as it is a medicine. My belief is so true that is the case, that no matter how scary it gets, I remember that belief and it keeps me feeling safe. No matter how scary, no matter how overwhelming, it's just always remembering this is good for me, and that's all I need. So I sat in that position with those thoughts, with that belief, and I allowed the power to come like a wave. The first vision I remember having was me. I could see myself standing, and I had a woman next to me, unrecognizable woman. And then behind me was another version of me. And then behind that me was another version of me. And what I recognized in that moment, for some reason, it felt like it was coming through the cushion. A cushion which my dad, the man who created me, had sat on in meditation himself. And suddenly I was starting to see myself. But then that self that I was seeing was becoming older, and then looked more like my dad. And then he looked like my grandfather. And then they just kept going further and further and further back. And then it was like a wheel. I was seeing this like spinning wheel of versions of me flashing before my eyes. One after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. And the woman that I didn't recognize, the woman that was with me in each row was another woman, a different woman, a different woman, a different woman. And then it was a different version of me, a different looking version, a different age. Boom, 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 boom. And what I was feeling was I felt like I was seeing my ancestral line. I was seeing all the men and women that had led towards me existing. Everybody who stands behind the spearhead that is me was flashing by, flashing by, flashing by, flashing by. But it felt like only coming from my father's side. And that's why I feel like it was coming from or through the cushion. I felt very close to my dad in this experience. And the speed of this this display, this merry-go-round of ancestors was increasing speed, and then it just kind of took off. And I'm not really sure how to explain or remember even what happened from that point. But the next thing I remember very clearly, I was feeling my heart like kind of vibrating, like kind of like shaking and shaking, not in a painful or uncomfortable or unpleasant kind of a way. It was just a sensation I was feeling something was locked and kind of trying to get out. And then my brother came to my mind, my brother Peter, and so did another person. I'm not going to mention who, but some people came to my mind. And I was, at the time of this story, I had been holding on to some resentment and carrying a bit of a grudge. I'll speak about my brother. There was some things we weren't agreeing on, and we weren't able to really meet. And we hadn't been talking for quite some time. And he just kind of came to my mind when I started feeling this thing in my heart, trying to unlock. But Peter just seemed to be present in this experience. And then I felt my heart kind of crack a little bit. And then it felt like these wings, like, and it's interesting, I'm making sound effects right now, but I feel like I could hear these sounds as well at the time. So the cracking sound of the heart and these wings like kind of like popping out the sides of my heart. And then I felt, and it's like you can feel this thing happening, but you can see it happening as well. And I could see or feel, or the experience was my heart stretching out its little wings, and then they started to flap, and then they started to flap. And once again, this increasing momentum of speed, the wings flapped harder and faster and harder and faster. And then it just increased and increased and increased to this point that my heart just exploded. It just exploded in love. And that's all there was. That was the liftoff moment for the journey. It was building and building with the momentum of this merry-go-round of ancestors, and then building towards this heart that just grew wings and fluttered. It was like hummingbird wings, like the momentum just popped. And the rest of the trip, or at least a big chunk of the trip from that point forward, was just absolute bliss, absolute love, absolute abundance, all the cliches, all the good shit. I was just in it. I felt so much forgiveness and so much gratitude and love to my brother. It just made me think everything that we weren't agreeing on was just absolutely ridiculous. And in this moment of pure love, there literally was no wrong in the world. And a mentor of mine, who I met much later, I actually only met 6 months ago in the Amazon, he describes this concept or this realization of everything is good, everything is fine, He calls it universal truth. Because when you zoom out, first of all, when you zoom out from the human mind, from your own mind, you go further and further back. Less and less to worry about. My trivial things that I'm worried about, once I zoom further out, my trivial things mean nothing to the group collective. And then you zoom out further from the group, that little group collective means nothing to the global collective. And then the global collective, once you zoom out from there and you're in space, all the human worries of the globe don't mean shit when you're thinking about our galaxy. And then you zoom further back from the galaxy, and then you just see that the universe is just in perfect harmony. It's just existing perfectly, and there is no wrong. Everything is fine, and everything is okay and as it needs to be. This is an incredible experience to have, but it's also not something that you can really hold on to in this human experience. And we can talk more about the philosophy of that maybe later after I tell this story, or maybe in another podcast episode. But that's what I reached. I reached the universal truth. At the time, before I met this mentor, before I understood it in those words, I was just feeling like it was enlightenment. It was nirvana. It was absolute bliss, peace, love. And the experience of being in this completely enlightened, completely peaceful, full of love being was just so incredible. So incredible that I couldn't help but celebrate. What's doing, everybody? I hope you're enjoying this story and my sweaty armpits. I'm here at Iramegia, my beautiful piece of land that me and my family own. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about this place. Ultimately, Iramegia is the end goal. It's the big dream, and it's the one that I've been brewing on for years. And it's kind of reaching that time in life where we got to get shit happening. So please go over to the Iramegia Instagram page. It's just there at this point. Sign up to my mailing list and stay up to date, because what we are doing and what we want to do here is create a community. It doesn't have to be a community of people living here full time, but just a community of people who share in the same visions, share in the same values, and want to get the same types of things out of life with each other. It's our firm belief that part of the reason the world is so sick is we're so far gone from our original ways, and Iramegia is a place that we want to bring those ways back. So follow it, stay up to date, get on the mailing list, and let us show you what we're doing, and maybe you can be involved. Who knows, maybe I'll be seeing you here for a cup of tea sometime. Appreciate you, I love you. Enjoy the rest of the story. I was celebrating so loudly that I couldn't talk for some days after that, and that kind of proved my idea that I needed somewhere private, because I was fucking hollering and cheering and screaming. And I don't want to break your ears by giving an example or a reenactment, but it was like, woo, I fucking did it. It was all the tension in my body gone, all the worry, all the stress, all the anxiety gone, all the doubt gone. It was just full, open love and arrival. And it didn't feel like it was me alone. I literally felt the entire world with me. It felt like a historic moment for humanity. It felt like every fucking thing that had ever happened was leading towards this moment of awakening. And it felt like the awakening was so real that it was felt and experienced by everyone. If I had $1 billion at that time, I would have bet that $1 billion that everybody in the world was having the same experience that I was having. I was isolated in this cabin in the woods alone, but I believed that the world was saved. I believed that we were healed. And it wasn't an egoic thing where it was like, I did it. I'm the one. I saved everybody. I felt so much acknowledgement, reverence, and homage to literally every fucking human for getting us there together. It felt like everybody had all of the humans in human history had set up the play, and I just tapped the ball in. I just put the little code. I just did the last piece, and then global healing, awakening, enlightenment for all, heaven on earth, boom, unlocked. Let's fucking go. Let's celebrate. Let's get into this. I remember like repeating things. I was like, where do we begin? Where do we begin? What do we do? It was always on the tip of our tongue. It was always around the corner. I remember just like all of these like understandings. Everything made sense. Like literally everything made sense. So much so that it doesn't make sense to explain that. Like I was going around the house like, oh, light switch. You turn it off, you turn it on. I get it now. And I don't even know what I got. Now, looking back, I don't get what that meant. But at the time, it meant everything. Everything meant everything. I remember feeling that everything was so delicate. Everything was so perfectly orchestrated and set up. I looked around the room and I thought, whoa, I can't move anything because literally everything is in the exact perfect place for me to be having this awakening. I realized in this moment that the entire universe is constantly trying to wake us up, constantly trying to remind us of this, of love, of abundance, of peace, of heaven. The universe, the nature, the animals, the inanimate objects, everything is just, it's there, you know. You can see the universe in a grain of wood. You can understand everything in a plant, in a fucking light switch. You know what I mean? It was all there, and I'd cracked the code and I'd figured it out. And from that point forward, everything was possible. Nothing was impossible. I literally had the world at my fingertips. I also understood in this moment that time doesn't exist. And, you know, that's such a spiritual concept. Time doesn't exist. It's a human construct. And obviously, like, we do have a clock. We do live with past, present, future. And time is something that humans need to understand. Linear, whatever. But the concept that it doesn't exist, it's so unfathomable. But in that moment, completely fathomable. It didn't exist. Time literally didn't mean shit. I remember looking at, Courtney has a beautiful collection of books on this really nice bookshelf. All of these old texts, all of these religious texts and fucking, you know, all the shit, all the esoteric knowledge. I remember just looking at these books in this bookshelf, thinking time doesn't exist. I'm literally going to read every single book. I felt that I was going to sit in that cabin and read every single book and not a moment would pass. I wish that was the case. Another concept that I fully understood, which is hard to which is hard to hold on to, is abundance. Abundance. Suddenly, oh my God, abundance. I get it now. We literally have everything we want at all times. It's literally on the tip of our tongue. It's at the tip of our fingers. We're within reach of abundance always. But for some reason, we don't realize it. But in the moment that I was in, I was fully experiencing abundance. I wasn't having any feeling of lack. There was nothing missing. I had everything I needed. And I came back to the human experience afterwards. And, you know, it's hard for me to hold on to that because we're not conditioned to believe in abundance. We are conditioned to believe in a lacking. We need more. It's not enough. We need to survive. There is this lack mentality built into our system, potentially from evolution and a need to survive, but also potentially from, you know, society has given us this idea of lack, so we contribute more or we continue to grind and we miss out on the more simple things. Who knows where it's all coming from, but I do see now that it's a mentality, it's an attitude, it's a perspective. And you either have the perspective to believe that you've got everything you need, and ultimately, when you put your hand on your heart and your hand on your belly, you do have everything you need. You are everything you need. I am everything I need, and I've got me, so I'm good. And I've got me, so I'm good. And so abundance really is, it's just a perspective, it's an attitude, it's a choice. And I'm not sitting here claiming, like I'm talking a lot. That doesn't mean that I think that I've figured it all out. Literally, I did figure it all out and then I forgot it all again, which is just the fucking paradox joke that the world has played on us, that we just continually have to go through the cycles to remember and then forget and to re-remember and re-forget. But in the moment that I'm telling you about, is I had abundance. I had figured it out. Time didn't exist. I had figured it out. Light switch. I had figured it out. I figured fucking everything out. And I didn't do it alone. Coming back to that, we did it together. So you, the listener, even if I haven't met you, thank you. You got me there. And everybody who I have met, thank you. And then everybody who I hadn't met. I'm talking about literally everybody. We all did it together. That's how it felt. And then on a more personal note, every single influence that I'd ever experienced, like small, medium, large influences in my life, was in the room. Everybody. I'm talking like my idols. I had Tupac in the room. I had Eminem. People who weren't my idols, Jay-Z and Beyonce. What the fuck were they doing there? I'm not sure. Might be some occult fucking voodoo, Illuminati, infiltration, not invited shit. But they, for some reason, were there. And then there was people that I knew. I had many of my friends. I had many of my old friends. I had people from my past. People who have done unthinkable violent things, not good influences, people that I hung out with that are not the types of people that I want to be like. I had them in the room and I was like, damn, dude, thank you for helping me get here. You know what I mean? Like, it was all good. Literally everybody had played their part and it was nothing but peace. There was no tension. There was no ego. There was no right or wrong. It was just, we were all there and it was all good. I had everybody, everyone I've come across, everyone I've met, everyone I've touched, everyone who's touched me. We were all there together and it was just absolute bliss. When I was processing my excitement and I was realizing that everything is possible now, that everything's at our fingertips. I remember when I started to think about money, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be a millionaire. Oh my God, I'm going to be a billionaire. I was literally screaming with excitement. And at this point, I was lying on my back. I had my top off and I was sweaty. And I was lying on the wooden floor. And the floor had, gotten sweaty. It was slippery. And I was slipping and spinning with excitement about the possibilities of abundance. And the visions were like money. Like, it's not like I was seeing money raining, but I was just seeing the image of money and I was just rolling around on the floor in excitement, not for this negative attachment to money, but just what money symbolizes within its space of freedom and possibility. It was just like, poosh, we're all going to be rich. We're all going to have everything we want. It was so exciting. I remember one point as well, and sorry if this this explanation is not so linear, I'm not like going from one thing that leads to the other. It's just I'm speaking what I remember as it comes to me. Obviously, it's been 2 years, and it's a jumbling experience anyway. It was crazy, like literally, looking back at it, it was crazy. And I mean that in all the best ways. But the other crazy, exciting thing that happened as well, remembering that it was Christmas, right? I was doing this on Christmas and It's a time for family. It's a time for celebration. It's also a like deeply religious time. It's supposed to be Jesus's birthday. Jesus is supposed to be an ascended master, and sacrificed himself for our sins and then rose to heaven, like this incredible figure who, whether you believe in religion or Catholic Church or whatever, all of the fucking corruption. I don't sign up to any of that shit in any place, whether it's church or other stuff. I'm not down with corruption. I'm not down with power dynamics and agendas and all of that fucking bullshit. But we can't deny that Jesus is an example of a good human, how good we can be. He's a teacher. He's somebody to learn from. And when I remembered that it was Christmas and I remembered what Christmas was, suddenly I'm like, boof, oh my God, it's Jesus's birthday. And then boof, Jesus was in the room. And it was like, whoa, man, fucking Jesus is in the room. And then poof, Muhammad. I didn't even know anything about Muhammad, but boom, Muhammad was in the room. Buddha was in the room. All of these like ascended masters, these symbols of hope and peace and love just appeared in the room. And I just felt the presence of these absolute super beings. And it was powerful. That's another really cool part of the trip that I experienced. What the fuck else happened? Yeah. A lot of stuff happened. A lot of big details, little details. I feel like I've told the bigger parts of the journey, the experience, and I won't bother with the rest of the little stuff. But something that was major and lasting was, in my experience, I felt so much. And the word so much just doesn't really do enough, because it was abundant, right? I felt an abundance of trust in myself, of lack of doubt, 0 doubt, 100% trust. And the reflection of everything I'd experienced in my life leading to that point. It's so easy for us to question whether that was the right decision, or should I have done that, or carry shame for this thing that happened 10 years ago, or whatever, all of that's so easy to carry. Baggage, our heavy baggage, that wears us down, puts a strain on the shoulders. But I had none of that. I looked back over all of those times and I saw that each little moment led to the next. It was all a part of leading me to this place where I was in a cabin and I was putting in the fucking code to crack open the universe. So all of it was meant to be. And I think that that's absolutely true. And it's hard to see it sometimes when we go through our hard times and we feel like something's wrong or something's fucked up or we're not enjoying life or whatever. But there are these moments where you go, nah, this is exactly the way it's supposed to be. And so I reflected on all of that with such deep gratitude to my family, my mum, my dad, everything they did for us, my siblings, everything they taught me, everything they supported me through, my friends, my enemies, my role models, good and bad, my influences, my art, my gifts, my creativity, God, everything, such gratitude. And then it was like, whew, that got me to where I am now. Where's it taking me next? And I reflected on the things I was doing in the world at the time. I was traveling, but also the hammock temple, poems for trade, hip hop, all of these things that I wanted to give the world, all of these things that made me feel like I was doing something good. I felt way more excited about. It was like, no, this is it. You are doing it, And when, back before the trip, feeling like, oh, it's not working out the way I want it to, this, that, whatever. In the trip, it was like, no, keep going. Boof, you've got it. You've got all the cards. I remember that was the way I was thinking at the time. The way I thought, it was like, I've got a beautiful hand of cards and I just need to play it. And then the thought came to me, Paddy Wagon. And this is the Paddy Wagon podcast. Before that, it didn't have a name. I was collecting interviews. I didn't know what for. I was doing all these random things I didn't know what for. But suddenly, paddy wagon, it all made sense. The idea for me to create a centralized location to keep all of my creativity in, to create a bath to pour myself into. The way I felt was I had all of these ideas and these dreams and these passions and these, ventures, but it was like having these creative darts and just throwing them at random in different directions. Suddenly I realized paddy wagon, it's a target, it's a central spot, and I can just throw all of my darts in the one spot. And so that's where I thought of paddy wagon. And then not long after the trip, maybe like a week after the trip, I built PDDYWGON.com, and everything has been happening since then. And I'm not trying to say that PDDYWGON.com is this huge thing. It's not. But it got me motivated, and it got me drive, and it got me on track with stepping up and just being like, hey, I'm here, and I believe in myself so much so that I'm going to build a fucking website. So that's another major thing that came out of this journey. There was a moment when I started to remember, I started to realize that what I was experiencing wasn't going to last forever. And my balloon, this beautiful balloon that I'd created, just slowly started to deflate. And it was daunting to feel like, I got it. I had the code. And then to think and remember, I'm going to go to sleep, and when I wake up, it's not going to be like this. But I felt like I'd made some groundwork. I felt like there was a code that I could collect, I could remember. And so I was just trying to remember and hold on to it. And then it was like cupped hands holding water, slowly just seeping away, And as much as I tried to hold on to it all, I guess what I have managed to hold on to is what I've told you here now. And that might not be complete heaven on earth bliss and abundance for all, but it is some powerful life lessons, some attitudes, some perspectives, some motivations, some connections to God, to the universe, to whatever you want to call it. And just a beautifully transformative experience. When I woke up the next day, it was confusing, it was shattering. I felt scattered and overwhelmed. I felt like I'd gone so far over that line that coming back was a bit like, whoa, did I push it too hard? Did I need to have that experience? What do I make out of that? I spent the day quietly. I felt like really stuck in that feeling, just overwhelm and confusion, scared, even a little bit scared of how wild I'd become, wild with excitement and celebration. I eventually took myself down to the beach. I decided again on this day I didn't want to be on my phone, and I didn't really want to be talking to people, but I went down to the beach to have a moment with the ocean. And when I got there, I bumped into Jade. Shout out again to Jade from the previous episode. And it was perfect. It felt like, a perfect synchronicity just to cross paths at this beach in this random moment, the day after Christmas, the day after the heaven on earth experience. And it was really special because Jade was functioning at the time as a little bit of a mentor for me. Someone with a lot more life experience and a lot more wisdom, and someone I was learning from. And to be able to see her after the dust had settled and kind of just be tender in her presence was really, really nice. I went back up to the cabin, and it's when I decided to clean that everything lifted. I remember suddenly, I can clean. And I cleaned up all the cushions, the nest that I'd made. I tidied up the altar. And as I was doing this, as I was working, as I was moving, I realized life goes on. We don't stop. We got to keep going with it. We got to keep moving with it. And suddenly I realized, like, no matter how confusing or overwhelming or hard to fathom my experience was, I can still keep the bits of gold that I collected. I can still hold on to something. And I just cleaned up and I did the dishes and just felt all of it start to land. And then I cooked myself a Christmas roast with potatoes and vegetables roasted, and can't remember if I had some meat, but I had a Christmas lunch on my own, and then I journaled, and that's what I just read. Yeah, wow, I feel like I just went on that journey again, and I'm going to say I'm definitely going to have to edit this conversation just to make it sit and and work. But yeah, so that's what happened. I made the paddy wagon. My purpose was set up and my direction was sharpened. And I spent a little bit more time in Denmark, and then I went further west, where I ended up in Fremantle, where I met the next guest on this podcast, Kaya. So when you listen to that episode, just keep in mind, think about the experience I've just had. And I guess that's the whole point of me telling these stories. I want to give the listener context to where I was at, because the Paddy Wagon podcast is not just about conversations. It's also about my journey and my rite of passage, my hero's quest around the world and deeper into myself. And the man you're looking at now is the result of those conversations that you're going to listen to. So with these stories that I'm telling, I want you to understand where I was at when I had those chats and what I was going through and what I learned in between each space. And yeah, if you've listened to this, I'm really, really grateful. And I will say, maybe I'll put this at the start, I don't know, but me telling this story isn't me recommending that you go and do the same thing. I think that taking a hero's dose of mushrooms is really, it's a big experience, and it's something that you need to be prepared for, and you need to have enough experience with psychedelics to be able to navigate. And it took me years and years to prepare myself to have journeys like that. So don't go thinking to go do it and take it lightly. And if you want any advice or if you want to talk about it, you can reach out, and I'm happy to send recommendations or advice in psychonaut exploration. Yeah, feel free to follow, send, subscribe, hit up the Patreon if you want to help me with my creative journey and donate money. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I feel kind of like drained and feel like I've just had that experience that I had on that Christmas all over again in a way. I feel very still. Maybe I'll add some stuff later when I've had more time to think and, get technical. But for now, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I hope you're well, and I'm sending you love. Peace. Fuck. Yo, it's a little ad. Here we go. Have you checked out paddywagon.com? You would have heard me just talk about it in this episode, and so now you understand where the idea came from. It is my creative dartboard, the space where I put all my good stuff. I've got my hip hop on there. As you can see, there's a few rap videos that I've created under the alias Esky. That's my rap name. That's my old school name. And we've also got this, Poems for Trade. It's my poetry performance gig, things that I do at weddings and events and festivals and markets. I'm getting paid to do that. And I've got other poets that are working with me. We've also got my Hammock Temple business, which I set up at festivals. It's a stage. This is my blog. You can read the stories from my travels, little moments that I've had, inspiring circumstances. That one, homeless in Dublin, that was a cooked story. Check it out. And then we've also got my podcast, so you can watch or listen to every episode. Also, the episodes I've been interviewed on with Doos and with Vicky Keeler, as you can see right there. So that's PDDYWGON.com. Give it a sus, follow it, subscribe, join the mailing list, do all the good stuff, and be kind to each other. Much love.